So there is a misconception out there about what type of birth doulas support and what doulas think about epidurals. So to get down to the bottom of this, I have contacted 6 of my favorite doulas to answer that question. What do you really think about epidurals? And they have some great things to share. For each of the doulas that participated, I am including their Instagram handle, so make sure to follow them if you want some great birth content. I also have their websites linked down below in the description. And without further ado, let's hear from those doulas.
So what do I think about epidural?
What do I think about epidurals?
So what do I think about epidurals?
What do I think of the epidural?
What do I think about epidurals? As a doula, I feel like epidurals are an incredible tool for birth that is really useful in certain circumstances. Not everyone chooses to use an epidural, and not everyone has to use an epidural. It's definitely a personal choice.
I think epidurals are a great tool that can be used in labor if you want to. I believe that all birthing people are capable of going unmedicated if they desire to, but epidurals are a great way to get some rest and to recover when you have been laboring for a really long time.
So I think that epidurals are a medical intervention that comes with potential benefits as well as potential risks. And the decision of whether or not to use an epidural for somebody's birth, ideally then the benefits will outweigh the risks for that person in that situation. And that's going to be different for every single person and every single birth, and it might change throughout the birth process as well, where it might not make sense to get one earlier and then it makes sense to get one later in the process as you get closer and closer to birthing.
As a doula, I think they're great. I think they're great for the people who want them and need them. I think that under the right circumstances, when someone is laboring for a long time and they're tired and they need a break, or they just choose to have one because it's their choice and they know their threshold and they know what they want and their preferences, and they're being clear on that and expressing that, I believe that anyone who wants something in labor should have it, and it shouldn't be the choice of the partner or the extra support people in the room, be it doula, friends, family, or even the caregiver. And I think when someone has an epidural, when they want one, when they feel they need one, that leads to a better experience. If someone's tired and they're exhausted from labor and they just need to get some rest, that epidural can be magic for someone who has that kind of need.
I do feel very strongly that it's not my role to share my personal views of an epidural or any form of pain management, pharmacological pain management with a client, because it's not relevant. And I'm also very, they're always very sure to make sure that my clients understand that even if they've made up their mind, in a prenatal discussion or a meeting with me, that they, absolutely don't want it or 100% do want it, that they have the right to change their mind at any time.
I think epidurals should always be properly consented, never coerced, and always appropriately dosed for the needs of the patient. So I think that it's good for us to just view epidurals as a tool that should be used appropriately. And I think the never coerced is important. I do think we need to be careful that we're always believing birthing people when they say, I'm planning to go into labor without one. I've got all these tools. Great, perfect. You totally can do that. I absolutely believe that's possible. A nurse, a provider, a doula should never be suggesting an epidural if it's not warranted. I think there's a lot of power when our clients know they can choose anything in birth from a place of confidence and not fear. And if you never choose an epidural, that's great. And if you get to the point where you decide to choose one, that's great too. It should be your decision. It shouldn't be anything people are pushing on you. And if you do have one, it should be just a piece of your birth story that's still going to be hopefully really wonderfully supported, really honoring the fact that the baby is coming into your family.
Is a really personal decision. Really, the only person that can make that kind of a decision is the one who would be getting the epidural, the person who's giving birth. And I think that it's really important for families for pregnant people and their partners and their support people or support team to really talk through and think through the different scenarios for, this is our ideal birth experience. This is what we want to happen if everything goes well, everything goes to plan, and then our plan B, maybe our plan C, maybe even all the way to our plan Z. And, everything might change during your process from what you prepared for and what you thought was going to happen, and that's okay. Just, it's good to have an idea of what are the benefits, what are the risks, and when might this make sense for us to get, even if it's a change of plans.
The truth is that most people that are birthing at a hospital in the US do choose to use an epidural. And so my job as their doula is to help labor to still progress, even with an epidural. Help them to move around in the bed with an epidural, help them to feel comfortable and still in charge with an epidural. So I'm still supporting them and they're using that particular tool.
Again, I think epidurals are a good thing for those who want them, but for those who feel pressured into having it and they don't really want it, if the partner is feeling like they can't bear seeing their loved one in pain anymore, or for the mama who's watching her baby have a baby and grandma she's going to be, and she's in the corner weeping because her child is in labor and in pain, even though her child has chosen not to have an epidural. If that person has an epidural because her mama is weeping in the corner, she's not having one out of her own choice. She's having one from being pressured from the people in her environment. And so, again, epidurals are great when you want one, not so great if you feel like you're being pressured into having one, and everyone deserves a choice as to what they want.
It's not whether or not somebody chooses to have one or not, because it is a very, very personal choice. And I've certainly been at enough births now where I can see that in some situations an epidural is 100% the best way to go, and in many situations has absolutely been the reason that somebody has been able to avoid a cesarean birth, for example. So they definitely have their place. What I do think, though, is that I think most people are unprepared for how seductive that call for the epidural is, even if they think that they've done a lot of work to kind of protect them from the, I suppose, the temptation, if you like. And I think the worst possible thing that could happen is somebody who has been very, very kind of resolute in not wanting to have an epidural, and then for whatever reason the circumstances of their labor do result in them opting to have one, and then following the birth they look back and they feel a profound sense of disappointment, or that they failed in some way. And as a doula, I think that's the one thing I never want a client to feel, because I feel fundamentally you cannot fail at birth.
There is no perfect time to get an epidural, and that it's just the right time for you. You can get an epidural early in labor and sleep most of it. You can get an epidural and be completely dilated and ready to push out your baby. Sometimes people use epidurals to help them manage their anxiety. And sometimes people get epidurals because they are really, really sleepy. And I think all of the reasons in between are valid and good choices to make. As long as the choice you feel like you're making is fully for you and about you and what your needs are in your birth, then I think it's perfectly fine to choose an epidural for your body.
Thanks so much to the doulas that helped out answering this question. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please hit the like button so that YouTube knows to share this with more people like you. And if you are interested in more on epidurals, this video is going to be the one that you're going to want to check out next. And it is about pros and cons of epidurals. If you have a question you want to ask doulas for a future video, make sure you add it in the comment. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, have a great day. Bye, guys.